remember we talked about The Last of Us 2 and some of the casting choices. Funny enough, there's a video about that by the Critical Drinker that came out 21 hours ago. So I wanna check that out. Because I saw the pictures. For some reason, The Last of Us 2 Reddit gets recommended to me all the time, which I don't really understand. Because I haven't played that game. I will not play that game. And I was never interested in that. Can you please not autoplay? I was never interested in this game to begin with, because I thought Last of Us 1 had a great ending with a very ambitious one where you can just you can think about it. It's not giving you all the answers or like a closed conclusion to the story, like an open end. You can think about it, and you can make your own little thoughts. I like that. I think it was a great end to these characters. When they announced Last of Us 2, I was like, huh? Oh, maybe it's just a different survivor story. That would be something I would have done, like different survivor stories, instead of continuing the story for two characters that I thought was very solid and over. But no, they made it very weird from what I could have seen during that entire little war they had online. But yeah, I also didn't watch the TV show because it just retells the first game story, and I played the first game. So no reason for me to watch that show. I know the story. And I've learned that video game adaptations just never reach the heights of video games. So yeah. But hey, the second season is coming, and apparently the casting is catching a lot of glimpses. A lot of people, make fun of it.
The past few years have seen the dawn of a new era for video game adaptations. Yeah, they've definitely been attempted before.
Dude, I like the first Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie.
With varying degrees of success, but it's only in the past 5 years or so that Hollywood has seen the true potential of stuff like this.
I still haven't watched Sonic.
Exploit it, and who could blame them, really? The amount of money being made by the video game industry absolutely dwarfs what Tinseltown manages to bring in each year. The budgets for AAA games make a mockery of even the most bloated of blockbusters, which is kind of creating its own set of problems, but that's a topic for another video. The point is, I can totally understand why the fine people of Hollywood want to jump on this particular bandwagon. It allows you to exploit a vast back catalogue of pre-existing characters and storylines without going through the difficult process of coming up with original ideas. There's a huge built-in audience that should, in theory, be super hyped for your product, and you could even tie your big movie release into the game with special downloadable content, creating some weird Ouroboros of entertainment.
Yeah, they did that with Monster Hunter Worlds. And you know what is great about that, why I don't ever want to see that again, is that Monster Hunter Worlds had the Artemis set. That is the name of the main character of the movie. Would you look at that? This set here, it looked okay, I guess. It's nothing too crazy, but no longer available anymore since 3rd December 2021. So because of some licensing issues, they took that out again. So now some people still have that, and it's fairly strong. It is if you just start out Master Rank, it's pretty good. So that's why I don't want these tie-ins unless it's like a permanent thing. That is not just, oh, now we lost licensing after a year and we cannot provide the content anymore. It's whatever. Bullshit. Moving on.
Game with special downloadable content, creating some weird Ouroboros.
By the way, there was also Assassin's Creed collaboration with Monster Hunter. That is also not available anymore.
Entertainment. Anyway, so far the results have ranged from good to bad to ugly to downright baffling.
I hate that show.
But one of the big...
Dude, the Resident Evil show is fucking dog shit. I didn't thought anything could ever be worse than the Resident Evil movies. But then the show came out. I swear to God, this is not a Resident Evil show. They just made up bullshit and afterwards called it Resident Evil and edited some logos into it with CGI or something. This show is just, even without Resident Evil, it's bad. It's just trash.
Downright baffling. But one of the big success stories in this confusing patchwork was The Last of Us, based off the best-selling video game series by Naughty Dog. I mean, as far as source material goes, The Last of Us was kind of a no-brainer, really. The game was as close to being a movie as the John Wick films were to being video games, and so it lent itself pretty naturally to a TV adaptation. Yeah, it might not have been perfect, it definitely dragged badly in places, the two main characters weren't as well developed or likeable as in the game, the casting was questionable at best.
For me, I don't see him as a Joel. He's not looking jaded enough, not, you know, done with the world enough. Joel was always, he was like such a, like, almost like hatred and pain filled, and Petro, as much as he's like, it seems like a very nice guy, that's the problem. He's a pretty nice guy, and he looks like a very nice guy. Joel, however, was a very jaded, cynical man. Don't know, I didn't felt that
places, the two main characters weren't as well developed or likeable as in the game, the casting was questionable at best, and for a post-apocalyptic zombie survival show, there was a distinct lack of zombies towards the end, but overall, I think people were fairly happy with it. But there was a problem looming on the horizon, dear viewer, and that problem came in the shape of Season 2.
Uh-oh.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Oh god.
Oh god, man.
See, much like Season 1 took its inspiration from the first game in the franchise, Season 2 was going to have to draw on its sequel to carry on the story. And well, there's no getting around this one. The Last of Us Part 2 was a bit of a fucking pig. No matter how many slobbering games journalists fell over themselves to fillet Neil Druckmann's throbbing shaft, and no matter how many meaningless industry awards it got showered with, the fact remains that The Last of Us Part 2 was, at best, one of the most divisive and damaging games in the history of the medium. Whether it was the brutal and mean-spirited execution of beloved characters,
Finish him! Fatality.
the retconning of past events to demonize people who made completely understandable choices at the time, the insufferable girl bosses who could do anything, beat up guys twice their size and don't take no shit from no man.
I mean, what I do like about this game is how violent it was. You know, I'm a little bit of a psychopath. I like violent games. You know, fuck, how do I say this? I'd rather have a violent game that actually is violent than these pseudo-violent games where you just shoot 5 magazines into a dude and he's just falling over. Okay? Okay?
The insufferable
So seeing stuff like this has... I also think in the first one you also did like takedowns and everything, but they didn't look nearly as good as this stuff.
Bosses who could do anything, beat up guys.
Did you see that? They it looks so much better than in the first one. I always thought the first one was boring. The gameplay was ass. The story was good. But here it looks like the gameplay is good. Oh my god. The gameplay is good, but the story is ass.
Don't take no shit from no man.
What you got there?
Bigot sandwiches.
Oh.
Ellie's gay, by the way. Or whatever the hell this ridiculous slab of beef was supposed to be. It all added up to a game that left a sour taste in people's mouths, that felt like it was made by a completely different creative team with completely different objectives in mind, and that trampled all over the legacy of its predecessor to achieve it. It was basically the gaming equivalent of The Last Jedi, and it had a similar effect on the fan base. The upshot of all of this is that HBO now find themselves in a bit of a no-win situation with Season 2, where any course of action is going to end up alienating a good chunk of their audience. If they deviate from the plot of the game and change key events,
because from what I can tell, like, nobody likes this game anymore. Like, not even any characters. Like, all of them have been completely shit on in this second game. And there's an entire Reddit dedicated to still cope with how bad their favorite game franchise has become. It's crazy.
in response to audience backlash, it's gonna massively piss off fans of part 2. And yes, apparently such people do exist. Then again, there's also people who find fat girls attractive. It makes no sense to me, but each to their own, I guess. On the other hand, if they stick closely to the plot of the game, which is what they did with Season 1, then it's gonna piss off basically everyone else. And here's the
You
thing,
can't
if I had to
win.
make a prediction here, I'd say they're probably gonna take the second option. Yeah, it flies in the face of logic, common sense, and basic human decency, but when Neil Druckmann is your showrunner, you don't need to worry about stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
See,
he's
Last
awful.
of Us Part 2 was very much Neil Druckmann's baby, his magnum opus.
I really
and
don't like his style of writing. I really don't. But then again, take it with a grain of salt. I don't like story games in general. I am a gameplay guy first. Always gameplay above anything else. I take gameplay, graphics, story. That's the order. And the graphics doesn't even have to be good. If it's Unreal Engine, the graphics are... Blech. I want gameplay and a cool look. Story, who cares? You know, I play my favorite franchise is Monster Hunter. You know, that should tell you anything. These games don't have a story. The story is Hunter, there's a monster. It eats our cabbage. Kill it. Good enough for me. Good enough.
changing key parts.
Unless it's Kingdom Hearts. I really like that because it's so absurd. But his way of writing is just miserable. Like, every character is just unlikable. And there's a fine line of likable, unlikable characters. And there needs to be a payoff. Like, one good example of an unlikable character that you can't look away from and you hate him and you want to see him fall down, and he does. This guy. Or another one. I mean, she doesn't really fall down, but also she doesn't really did anything wrong. But there's characters that are just very unlikable. But there's reasons for it, and there's solutions to it. In Last of Us 2, nothing. It's just everybody is just an annoying piece of shit the entire time. With the biggest spit in your face at the end.
Of it for the TV adaptation would be an admission of defeat.
I mean,
and his ego
the game constantly spits in your face, but, you know.
just won't allow for that. In fact, to cement this idea, he even brought in Hallie Gross, the co-writer for the game, to work on this season, which should really tell you everything you need to know about where this show's heading creatively. It's gonna do what the game did and probably double down on it. While I'm here, there's a few other concerns that I might as well mention now because I think they're gonna factor into the show's overall reception. The first of which is the casting. Yeah, we all meme on Pedro Pascal for showing up in basically everything these days, and while I'm sure he'll turn in the same reliably acceptable performance that he brings to every one of the 500 or so projects he shows up in every year.
Nah, I don't. I mean, I didn't watch much with him. I know one movie. I watched one movie with him, and I liked him. I can't really tell you much about anything else. I didn't watch Game of Thrones. I didn't watch Gladiator 2 because Gladiator 1 was so good. The second could never live up. Where is it? Here. This movie with him. I really enjoyed... Wait. I really enjoyed this one. Nicolas Cage and him, Pedro Pascal, in the unbearable weight of massive talent. I thought this was such a fun movie to watch. Nothing that, you know, changed my world, but it was like 2 hours of pure fun and entertainment. It was just great. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's pretty much a Nicolas Cage movie about Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage. It's great. And I liked his performance. He was a fun guy.
Never gonna get me to concede that he was the right guy to play Joel, just like he wasn't the right guy to play General Acacius.
Yeah, I don't know.
He
doesn't. I don't see him as this jaded warrior or like jaded man who's like grim looking and done with like cynical. It doesn't really fit him, in my opinion.
He was perfectly fine in the role, I guess, because he's a good enough actor to make most characters work to some degree, but you could tell that it didn't really fit with his sensibilities as a performer. I get the impression that he's actually a bit of a sensitive soul in real life, probably more inclined towards flawed and vulnerable characters with a lot of emotional expression, wearing nice fluffy jumpers and doing bouncy showbiz interviews, but for some reason Hollywood keeps trying to market him as a rugged, grizzled
Yeah, I
tough
don't
guy,
get that.
like he's the next Charles
He
Bronson
seems the
or
perfect
Clint
choice for
Eastwood or
other
something,
roles, Paul.
and it all feels about as authentic as Zendaya's career. All of this is to say that I don't think he was the right choice to play Joel. I don't especially like what he did with the character in season 1, and I don't expect it's going to get any better in season 2. But okay, fine, I guess that's a problem that'll solve itself eventually. The bigger issue is Ellie. Let's be real with ourselves, gentlemen. I think pretty much everyone agrees that Bella Ramsey was a bad choice to play this character. Like, I don't want to shit on someone's appearance, but the job of any actor is to physically and emotionally embody the character that they're playing. And be honest here, out of all the teenage actresses who would have jumped at the chance to play Ellie, are you seriously telling me?
Yeah, she doesn't. Okay, that's a shot from a like interview thing.
Out of
But
all
where is it?
the teenage actresses who would
She simply doesn't look like Ellie at all. Like, no feature of her looks like her. Not the nose, the chin, the eye, nothing. Just nothing looks like Ellie. I don't know. She apparently a lot of people really liked her in Game of Thrones, so she most likely is a competent actor and everything. I didn't watch anything with her, I think. So I can't comment on that. Just from a pure visual standpoint, she doesn't look like Ellie. You know, Pedro Pascal at least has like a same look and vibe to Joel. It fits good enough.
would have jumped at the chance to play Ellie. Are you seriously telling me this was the best they could come up with? Season 2 is also supposed to take place 5 years after the events of the first season, with a much more grown-up Ellie taking on the lead role in the narrative. The problem is that Bella Ramsey somehow still has the face and build of a 12-year-old girl, even though she's like 21 now, so I've got no idea how they expect to make that one work.
I mean, that is an unfair task anyways, because if she's only 21, how's she supposed to play a 25-year-old? You know, just... And yeah, she looks younger than 21. I would have not guessed. I would say she's like, maybe like 17 or something. That's hard. Like, it's not really something... How do you work around that? Like, if you want to use the same actor, how do you deal with a character that's older than you? Normally, you take actors that are older and put them in younger roles. So if there's like a 20-year-old, you use a 30-year-old. Or like for a 40-year-old, you use a 50 or 60-year-old. That's why you also always think that younger people look like babies, because in movies and shows, they always use older people to depict like middle-aged people. It's always like one step further. It's weird. But it is a thing, by the way.
Especially the action scenes where she has to come across as a dangerous fighter who'd rip your throat out if you messed with her. Jesus, at least teach her how to throw a punch. Appearances aside though, this season's also going to need her to do a lot of heavy lifting from an acting point of view, and honestly, I don't really think she has the range or the charisma to pull it off. She can manage a kind of smarmy, prickly aggressiveness, but that's basically the only thing I got from her in
Teenage
season 1.
angst.
Ellie's unique combination of plucky bravery, fake bravado, childish innocence, and emotional vulnerability from the games was replaced by a kind of sneering, arrogant overconfidence where she was able to verbally spar with adults far older and more experienced than herself that made it pretty hard to like or even care about her after a while. And honestly, I don't know how they expect to get over that. The casting of Abby was always going to be a point of contention too, and to be fair, they've at least found an actress who looks like an actual human female this time around instead of whatever the fuck this was supposed to be.
God.
Seriously though, Caitlin Dever is a pretty good actress, and if you haven't watched her in Dopesick, then I can definitely recommend that show. If you don't already hate the pharmaceutical industry with every fibre of your being, then you definitely will after that. Anyway, the downside though is that the role of Abby is kind of a poison
Big
chalice,
Pharma, that
and I
sounds
think
good.
she's going to come in for a lot of criticism no matter how well she plays it. I don't
Yeah,
like it, but that's the hostile environment.
She is
I mean, the
really handed a bad hand here. She will have to struggle through a lot of criticism and eyes on her, because that is one of the most hated characters in gaming history, which he has to, you know, portray.
Created. Now, this last one is purely one of those gut instinct things, but I get the feeling that Season 2 is going to go all in on the message.
Okay.
We already know that stuff like
Goes
that is
loud.
close to Neil Druckmann's heart, and he certainly injected every ounce of it into the second game. But while Season 1 generally managed to avoid being too overt with its political messaging, you could always kind of feel it there lurking in the backgrounds.
So, communism. Nah, it ain't like that.
Get it? Because they talk about communism on an animal farm.
It is that, literally. This
It's
is
an
the
Animal
communism.
Farm reference.
We're communists.
I mean, oh my god, that's so weird. If you live in a small community during a zombie apocalypse, you don't have an open market. You have no... If you want to survive, you would have to use communism. It's not like you can. You would have to, you know, make it even distribution and everything. You can't have one guy taking all the apples. Just read Animal Farm again. That's a way better story. It always leads back to Animal Farm, man.
But the showrunners knew they had to win people over with that all-important first season, otherwise there wouldn't be any more, and so they were smart enough to keep it dialed down to some degree. But now that they've gotten
I don't
over
care
that
about this
initial
stuff.
hurdle, well, I'd expect to see it fully unleashed with Season 2. Remember Westworld, anyone? Remember how that show
Nope.
fell off a cliff after an incredible first season and basically
haven't
devolved
watched it.
into a tedious female empowerment wank fest? Well, there's your patient zero right there. Ultimately, we're
Oh,
not going to know for sure until
Are those the group gooning sessions we learned about today? Is that where they are from?
Season 2 releases, and it might still turn out to be an amazing product that somehow pleases both sides of the heavily divided fan base, but if I were you, I would go into this one with a healthy dose of skepticism. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
I think that I've fallen out of love with Final.
Shit.
The past few years
I don't know, man. I really can't get into this show. First, I already know the story, so if it just retells the story, there's nothing that I can get out of it. And there's this guy, I hate him. The characters don't look close enough to the game, or even at all like the game. So yeah, I don't know. But it will be very interesting to see that entire bullshit fest of Abby and Ellie once again. It will be getting not just the show gets a second season, all the drama and internet BS will also get a second season. And I will have more videos to watch where people shit on each other. That will be epic, man. Alright, moving on. See you in the next one.